Good morning, everyone. Good morning from the capital town of Romania, from this part of Eastern Europe that is midway from the west and the east. One of the most famous Romanian scientists in the history of religions and the yoga studies, Mircea Eliade, remarked that Romania has this position right in the middle geographically between East and West. And this may permit to the people living in this space, in this area, to receive or to live in a certain way that makes sense for all the other people around us. So today we are going to talk about, we are going to practice some techniques that have been transmitted to us in the Romanian School of Yoga. We are going to talk about how our school was born, who founded it and when. And in the same time, we are going to become aware of this coincidence. Exactly 50 years ago, the European Union of Yoga was founded and our School of Yoga as well. All right, let's start, first of all, by just becoming aware of our attention. More precisely, let's find out, where is my attention right now directed? Is my attention right now directed to inside or to outside? And while noticing where my attention is placed right now, the question is, how do I feel? What's my inner state? I may be well aware of something outside me. I may look at something, maybe there is a certain noise or sound outside me, and while listening to it, I may well be aware of my inner state while doing this. So slowly, this may bring my whole attention to myself, and I become aware of how I sit, how my legs are positioned. I don't have to modify anything, just become aware of how I keep my legs now on the ground, on the floor, or wherever they are. I can become aware of how my body sits or just stays. Is there anything vivid, a body part or something in me that attracts my attention now more than the rest? I can feel that body part, and I can also add the awareness of my whole body as it is positioned right now. And I can realize that this body has a certain position in space, in my room. Wherever I am in the room, I can now become aware of the distance between myself and the wall in front of me, the wall behind me, the wall or the window to my right, the wall to my left. I can become aware of the distance between my body and the ceiling. Between my body and the floor. So I realize that I have a very precise position in the space I occupy in my room. I am aware of all the limits of this space around me. I feel myself in this room. And I feel the room around me. Myself, I feel myself in the space of my room. And I also feel the room around me, surrounding myself. And now all together, myself and the room around me and myself together simultaneously. And we can yawn and sigh and stretch. And we can lie down on our yoga mat or on the floor, on the whatever I have prepared for myself for today's session. All right. And while there on the floor, stretch your body. Stretch your body with your right hand extending over your head on the floor, and your right hand and the right arm makes a couple with your left leg, left foot, and you become a diagonal that simply stretches more and more as the time passes by from your right hand in diagonal, going down to your left foot. You just become one arrow that stretches. Your right hand goes to the wall next to it, and your foot expands towards the other opposite wall next to the foot. All right, and now change the diagonal. Your left hand expands, goes above your head on the floor next to your ear, and expands towards the wall, coupling itself with the right foot, right leg and foot. Yes, you do it. You do it continuously for a few more breaths. And when you finally feel like, yes, I have stretched enough this moment, this morning, you just bring your elbows next to your ribs, palms facing the ceiling. You can make your heels touching each other and leave your 2 feet going to the right, to the left in a relaxed way. And just feel yourself. What are the sensations that you feel right now in the body? All right. So while the first sensations in the body, in a way, reduce their intensity as the time passes by, there comes a moment when I can easily become aware of the whole body again, the wider landscape of sensations of this living body that I inhabit right now, right here. All right, and I invite you now to stand up. I cannot see all of you. Ideally, I would like to be able to see you. So if you have your camera working, please turn it on so that I can see you as well. If for some reason that is not possible, I'll try to accommodate. And I invite you to stand up. So I imagine you were lying down on the floor so far. Please come and stand up. And the question is, what have you noticed? From this position of being lied down and standing up, there was a piece of life happening, going on. What have you been noticing? Now you are standing up. What are you now noticing? And I invite you to go down again, to lie down your body. And the moment you reached there, the floor, and you finally lied down. Question is, what have you been noticing? Another precious piece of life has finished. Had a start when you were up, standing up. Something started there. You went down, you lied down. There was your life. There was our life going on. And now we are down, just resting, not doing anything. What have I been noticing in that process? And what am I noticing right now? Okay. So I invite you to stand up again, inviting you in the same time to add more awareness in this act of coming up, standing up. Just notice, how do you cross this space from lying down to standing up? And once you reached here, standing up, how do you feel? You may be noticing your feeling, because that was the question, how do you feel? You may be noticing sensations in your body. You may be attracted by something in your room, outside you, something you see, something you hear. You may be noticing your breathing going on. Or maybe some thoughts going on as well. So we can all sit down or sit comfortable now. So we did this very simple exercise. Lying down, standing up, lying down. And we did it once as we could. The second time we introduced more awareness to it. And this very simple gesture, very simple action of ours allows us to meditate, to observe life as it develops, as it unveils in a very simple moment to moment of my life. And this gives me an opportunity to reflect on life itself. This gives me an opportunity to reflect on yoga. That is, in a definition we will talk about today, is life itself, lived with awareness. It gives me the chance to meditate upon the fact that my life is everything between the horizontal line. I was horizontally lying down. There are so many situations in my life that can be assimilated to this position. And between this lying down position, totally horizontal lying down, and the other, the opposing position, standing up, totally vertical, totally vertical. Between total horizontal and total verticality, here I have a chance to meet my entire life. Okay, we'll go back to it. We'll get back to it soon. Now we are moving on to present how our School of Yoga was founded. And I can say that everything started in 1961, when the 50 years young and suffering Mario overhears a conversation between a famous doctor in Romania at that time, Dr. Parhon, and his parents. He was not supposed to overhear this conversation, but he did it. The verdict coming from the doctor was sharp and spine shivering. Unfortunately, due to a peculiar disease, this young boy, Mario, would most likely live only for another 5 to 6 months. He was suffering of a serious disease affecting his thyroid gland and the entire endocrine system, which in turn generated a blockage in the entire body. So the medicine of those times did not have a cure for this type of disease. You can imagine the type of panic and the feelings that Mario could feel in this particular moment, knowing that he would only survive probably 5 to 6 more months. Then his family at some point took a train. They went from Bucharest to Brașov, where his father, Mario's father, was working. And in that train, Mario meets a strange character. Somebody approaches him and asks him just this question: would you like to leave? Would you like to leave? And of course, Mario was surprised and said definitely yes. And this is how the first encounter with his guru happened. And for another year and a half, Mario was helped by this person, started exercising, started approaching his disease from a different angle. Guru introduced him into the practice of yoga and finally helped him cure. They practiced together about a year and a half, and just before leaving, going back to where he came from, Guru initiated Mario in yoga. And this happened on the 25th of November. So we're very close to what we call here in our school the initiation day. The initiation, or through initiation, Mario received a keen understanding any form of yoga, not only one type of yoga or one particular form of it. You can imagine how indebted Mario must have felt towards yoga, because literally it saved his life. He continued practicing even after his guru left back. And later on, before leaving, Guru also foretold Mario about receiving a different type, a very specific form of yoga later on. Okay, so Mario received this information and continued practicing, and he started teaching his first yoga class on the 1st of December 1971. So basically, this is why we are saying this year we celebrate 50 years of yoga teaching in our school, and yoga teaching in the Romanian School of Yoga. You see here some of the pictures from those beginnings. The first group was smaller than the one we can see in the pictures. There was only Mario and 6 other colleagues. As far as I know, at least 2 of them are still with us today, and we will be inviting them in an event in a few days to join us too. After Mario started teaching, for the first time in the communist countries, there was a visit from a real yogi, an authentic yogi, Surenji Goyal. You can see him in this picture in the middle, shaking hands with Mario. He visited several countries in Europe and several countries from the communist bloc as well. Romania, I think Hungary was there on his list, Poland as well. And he supervised a few lessons Mario was teaching, and he not only confirmed the value of yoga he was seeing, but also gave Mario a yogic name, Sri Ishwarananda. All right. Years passed on, and as foretold by Guru before leaving, in 1978, Mario received, through another type of initiation, a very specific form of yoga called Vak Yoga. And after receiving it, after deepening what he received in 1978, Mario realized that it may be one of the oldest forms of yoga known to people. That's why we use this term proto-yoga. It may be something like 14,000, 15,000 years old. It's interesting to say this because in the European Union of Yoga, right now we are celebrating 5,000 years of yoga and 50 years of yoga in Europe. Actually, there are indications that guide us to see, to understand, to suppose that yoga as a phenomenon goes even longer in the past, has even deeper roots than just 5,000 years. How do we know? How can we know this? If we look at this evolution of the human being, we see here hundreds of years, 600,000 years, when a certain type of human being appeared, the Pithecanthropus, the first one who started using his hands more and more, the first one who started to also try to stand in two legs, but not reaching that status yet. And then you can see how this being evolved in a matter of hundreds of thousands of years, reaching the Neanderthal human being about 80,000 years ago, then through further evolutions, giving birth to the Cro-Magnon human being about 35,000 years ago. And then from this evolved the Homo sapiens sapiens about 10,000 years ago he appeared. And then of course we are talking about the human being as we know now. The reason why I'm presenting this chart is because when Mario received this form of yoga, the Vak Yoga form, the whole atmosphere of all the exercises received brought him basically in a cave environment, as if this type of yoga was practice, was discovered by human beings who were living in caves. And if we study the type of art, the type of manifestations that was going on about 15,000 years ago, 14,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago, we can have a look here at the paintings in Chauvet in France. We can also have a look at the paintings in Lascaux caves. Human beings are there depicted, animals are depicted. And if we look carefully at the carvings in the Adaura cave in Italy, next to Palermo, I had a chance to see this place, although the cave is not open to public. You could see positions of the body that resemble later on yogic positions, yogic postures. The royal scorpion, for example, may be alluded here, maybe guessed in this position to the left-hand side. So We don't know exactly, we cannot say precisely what was going on in those caves, how these human beings' lives was precisely, but we can feel when doing these exercises that that may be the moment when this Vak Yoga was born. We cannot say more now in this type of context, but we can go on by adding some of the discoveries or some of the contributions that Mario and the people who practiced with him all along these 50 years could underline, could emphasize. One of the first contributions we can talk about now is some principles, a series of principles. These are the principles that Mario did not discover them. He just felt them and synthesized them, formulated them. And let's meet this principle or these principles. Why? Because we need to know what yoga is, how yoga can be defined, to know what to ask from it. Depending on the image we have of yoga, our practice, our own practice will be influenced by this definition, by how we see it. So it's important to know that how we see it, it will impact us. And here is what Mario transmitted to us. There is a direct relationship between yoga and life. Yoga is life lived with awareness, conscious living of life. Or in order to be truly in yoga, basically any type of yoga should reflect life, any type of yoga. And within any type of yoga, if there are many schools of yoga, every school of yoga should also reflect life. This is a principle. If we know it, we can realize if we are talking about an authentic yoga going on or not. Within that school of yoga, each class of yoga reflects the entire life. And if we look at the class of yoga and its elements that compose every class of yoga, charana, the pre-integration, the sadhana, the work itself, the development of the yoga session, and the last part, which is the integration, the relaxation, and the recovery of what was going on in the class, every part of this yoga class in itself needs to reflect life itself and as a whole. And if we go even more to the detail of it, if we look into a class of yoga and select any exercise of yoga, basically every exercise of yoga, if it is a yoga exercise, it reflects the entire life. So we can simply put the principle of integrality. Yoga, one exercise, one class, a certain school, a certain type of yoga. If it is yoga, it simply has these characteristics. It reflects life. As we have seen in this very simple exercise we started with, we were lying down, we stood up, we were standing up, we lay down. In itself, that was an yoga exercise. In itself, that exercise reflects the entire life. It summarizes life from the beginning, from birth, evolution, development of life, awakening, and then finishing life, going down and lying down again, death and what comes after it. As simple as it appears, it's a true and deep yoga exercise. Okay, so this is one contribution. Almost every year, Mario would start his classes with this peculiar characteristic of yoga, the integrality principle of yoga. And you would present it, accompanied with exercises, and transmit this key element to us. He also, in time, over years and years, he insisted on other 4 definitions of yoga. Again, why are they important? Because how we see yoga influence how we practice yoga, what we make of it, either too much or too little, depending on how we see it, how we define it. So one contribution that he was very fond of is this: yoga is permanent, continuous, and profitless self-noticing, attention to self. And every word has its importance in such a definition, because it draws our attention to the fact that yoga as an action doesn't have breaks, or if it has breaks, is permanent anyway, and it's continuous. The fact that it's profitless also is crucial, because it takes us, for example, to that definition, yoga phala trishna vairagya, the Sanskrit definition, the classic definition. There are so many deviations in unauthentic schools of yoga, or in unauthentic processes that look like yoga, but we cannot talk about yoga there simply because they aim at a certain profit, be that power, be that pleasure, be that possession. Yoga can be recognized if it has this characteristic, doesn't aim at gaining something, and is done through self-noticing. That's why a key question is, what am I noticing now? Where is my attention now? What can it notice? Another definition, the second one, in a series that can go maybe to 200 definitions of yoga, 300 definitions of yoga. There are so many definitions possible. Mario picked this one and transmitted to us and said, this one says simply, yoga is to become aware, is becoming aware at the human level of the consciousness of creation's indestructible oneness. Consciousness as a subject became very popular for the last 10 years. It started probably about 15 years ago, and neurosciences took it on board and started becoming a big theme nowadays. Of course, we, the human beings, just started this trip in understanding consciousness. Started, I mean, in these contemporary days with contemporary tools, because otherwise it started maybe 14, 15,000 years ago, as we said. I have my own consciousness. You have your own consciousness. In yoga, we say every living organism has its own consciousness. Not even living organisms, but also a stone has a certain level of consciousness, a tree, and so on and so forth. So we can imagine the type of consciousness the entire universe, the entire creation has. and the consciousness of the oneness of this creation is a certain type of consciousness, and yoga helps us become aware of that. So going from my limited consciousness, who I think I am, expanding, enlarging, deepening until a different level of consciousness is reached, namely the oneness consciousness. Okay, so we keep it for the moment as the second definition. There is a third definition that Mario used and based all his teachings on. This one: yoga is the sum of all the efforts carried out by the human nature through its own means to rediscover and maintain the contact with its true nature. So we see every definition brings something else to the table without possibly pretending that it has everything in it. But using different angles, each definition brings something new, a new light on this very complex that is the yoga phenomenon. This one, for example, brings to our attention the fact that there is an effort there is an abhyasa necessary. We know from the previous definition, this abhyasa needs to be permanent, needs to be continuous and profitless. It tells us and underlines that we are talking about the means specific to human nature. We don't need technology. We don't need the sophistication of, I don't know what kind of technology these days to be able to practice yoga and to be in touch with this process. And this process basically, step by step, gradually takes us to rediscover and to maintain the contact with its true nature, with our true nature. A fourth definition: yoga appeared by deliberately, intentionally reliving the life situations in order to live life correctly, according to dharma. So dharma enters this definition, and by that we understand these laws of the universe, these laws of creation, whom, if we don't know, they may affect us and not realizing why we are affected. These four definitions has another implication, and Mario wrote about it and used the following explanations in explaining what he was talking about the fourth by or through the fourth definition. Let's call this the hypothesis regarding the Satya Yoga, Satya Yuga. We know from yoga, Satya Yoga is that time in which men, the human being, man or woman, no matter, was in contact with his true nature. There may have been, and we are talking about, again, this 14,000, 15,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, there may have been this moment in time when the neocortex of the brain of this human being was developed enough, but not dense enough to block the messages that were coming from inside, from the oldest parts of the brain and from the middle parts of the brain as well. The neuroscience these days, and for the last 10, 15 years, emphasizes that the transcendental feeling of the human being may have been rooted into the depths of our brain, in the center of our brain, in the older part of our brain and in the limbic system as well. So there was this human being that had this brain open enough, close enough as well, to still receive the information from inside about who he or she truly is, the information about the true nature. So if that was the case, there was a moment in time when this human being must have felt that something is lost, something in connection with this information is lost. And then he or she did something to rediscover, to reconnect with this information. And that kind of action started being called yoga. And that kind of action, no matter the centuries, no matter the yugas where the human being was called or can be called even today yoga, in respect in respecting by using this term, respecting the name that this phenomenon received later on when it reached India. Another hypothesis regards how yoga was born. So we looked at how the human brain may have been structured when yoga was born. And now we look at a different paradigm. This human being was living a life situation. And then that life situation gave birth in that human being a certain attitude. So the life situation was a chance for the human being to experience and to become aware of a specific attitude that was born in himself. That attitude gave him or forced him or proposed him or invited her to have a certain instinctive posture. He didn't think about how to sit, how to stand, what to do with his body, because it was his instinct that made him to take that position. Okay, so this was the series of events. Living a certain life situation with awareness, becoming aware of the attitude that infused that life situation, the kind of posture that resulted from that attitude. And then after some time, again, we're talking about this human being that felt like, I may have been missing something. I've lost the contact with my true nature. What can I do? I reflect on what has just happened in my life. I reflect on this, I can meditate on this, and then I enter this posture that initially was instinctive. I repeat this posture again, but this time as a result of my intention. I explore what happened to me as a result of that life situation. I enter the posture and surprise, I find again the attitude that infused my body and my being once I was in that life situation. So I find the attitude, and by doing this, I learn and live my life with more awareness, or with a deeper level of awareness again and again and again. So what we have here in this sketch is something that Mario wrote and presented to us many, many times, years and years, as a kind of possible hypothesis regarding how yoga was born. And by describing this, basically we come to realize that another remark he made, yoga is, after all, and before everything else, attitude, is something very important in the yoga practice. Because a certain position is a result of a certain attitude, and attitudes basically come along and teach us how to learn from life, how to live life with awareness and with consciousness, more and more consciousness, until we reach that level of knowing who we are and the level of consciousness of oneness of universe. All right. So I stopped the screen share because talking was enough for the moment. Please notice what thoughts cross your mind now. What are you thinking of right now? There was this definition, the other definition, attitude, life situation. Please take a pen and write down if there are any questions that cross your mind, knowing that you are thinking now. So, if these are the thoughts that go on in your mind, questions, remarks, they can be noted. So yoga reflects life. Yoga invites me to reconnect with my true nature. Yes, we practice yoga in order to live life with awareness. We don't live our lives to practice yoga. Thank you, Nelly, for reminding me this. What is then the first gesture, the first action we can take to reconnect ourselves with this true information, with the correct information? And Mario called this first gesture, of course, we have the first step we can make is just to become aware, to know where my attention is and what am I noticing. But technically, if we are talking now technically, what can we do first of all? There is a fundamental tendency we have as human beings. We saw the picture of that Pithecus that was still moving onto his four legs, 2 legs and 2 arms, but they were not basically arms. And his tendency inside him put him in a position of standing onto 2 legs. There was this moment in the evolution of man in which, from the horizontality of our 4-legged position, we tried to stand up. What is the tendency there? The tendency, the fundamental tendency is to become vertical. And here and now, you, Camelia, you, Adelina, Nelly, Mihaela, and Dan, and myself can rediscover this fundamental gesture. And I invite you, as you sit, without changing too much in your position, maybe sitting on a chair or on your bed or on your on the floor, just bring your two hands together. Join your two hands together and start expanding towards the sky. Feel how you become vertical. Feel how your body becomes a straight line, a vertical line that expands towards the sky. That's one direction, but there is also down to the earth through the spine. We expand ourselves towards these two directions, upwards and downwards. Upwards with my hands that are united, are joined. Now, because the two hands are joined, the two hemispheres in my brain are joined, and I go up and up continuously, permanently. I'm growing up, and I'm also growing down. And I can rediscover in myself what it means to be vertical on one hand and to reach verticality. In this fundamental tendency of the human being to become vertical. It implies stretching down, stretching up simultaneously. While keeping this position, question is, what are you noticing? What are we noticing? What are the sensations in the body? What are the feelings inside myself? They are accompanied by these sensations. I stretch towards the ceiling, towards the sky. I stretch towards the earth. There are all these sensations going on in my body. I receive them and I accept them as they are right now. Life unfolding within my body. How is my breathing going on? It adapts to this fundamental tendency, which is right now, right here in my body. And what is the attitude that unveils itself? Attitude to myself? Attitude to life? Attitude to the entire universe? All right, and we can all give up any action. Just bring your hands down. What are the sensations right now in the body? What can you sense? How is your breathing going on? breathing. Sensations in the body. And attitude. What's my attitude towards myself right now? If for some people this word is too cloudy, we can unveil bit by bit. What do I mean by attitude? There are many layers of this word. What can I understand by attitude? But let's say for the moment, just ask, am I open to myself? Or am I closed to myself? Closed to myself. We can say the attitude maybe, I am closed to something or somebody. I don't want to contact, I don't want to be in touch with, I don't want to see it, I don't want to, etc. Or I'm open to it. Yes, why not? I'm curious about it. I'm open to it. I want to go and experiment and try and see, taste, and so on. All right. And you can guess, we can stop here. You can note down in your book if right now you feel more or less open towards yourself, more or less open to life, more or less open to other people. Of course, life includes other people, just to be more precise. Some people, when asked, what's my attitude to life, maybe too vague. What's that? What's life? For some other people, life is, wow, yes, I totally understand what you mean by life. So we can go on and practice. There are so many hundreds exercises in yoga that basically invite me to realign with the verticality in myself. This is just one of the most simplest ones. A whole category of exercises in yoga can be put into this class of aligning with verticality, stretching to reach vertical line. Okay. Let's experiment more. Nelly is writing here in the chat that she feels she is more sincere right now. Okay. Thank you, Nelly, for sharing this with us. Okay, we get back to the history we are sharing with you. Just one moment to see where is it. One other characteristic of the type of yoga practiced here in Bucharest, in Romania, is the fact that Mario was a master in Budo Zen as well. He received the agreement from his guru to practice Zen, this form of Buddha Zen. And therefore he met a master in Bucharest. His name was Yamamoto-san or Sensei. He was a master in the school of Buddha Zen called Sakura Ryu, one of the 3 internal martial arts school in Japan. And this person was in the embassy of Japan in Bucharest. And because Mario was the only non-European possible member of the school at that moment, beginning moment, Yamamoto-san had to travel to Japan and to ask permission from the supreme master of the school, Kimihara Abe O Sensei. He asked for approval that Mario enters the school. And he received this approval. Oh, just a moment. And he became the only non-European member of the school. And later on, after the school took the decision to enter sleep, in common brackets, that means to enter because the masters considered that the environment, the context of the human beings on earth is no longer suitable for the school to exist, they enter silence, they enter the solution. And when they did that, Mario became the guardian of the technical accuracy of the Sakura Ryu school. And he stayed, say, in this position until the end. Now, why I'm mentioning this? Because the characteristic of our school is that we also practiced Zen and Buddha Zen with Mario for many, many years. And we found how yoga and Zen meet, how the spirit of yoga and the spirit of Zen are complementary, how they don't fight, but they can complement together, different ways, but reaching the same kind of state, or different states, but with the same goal of helping the human being. There are many ways in which this influenced how we practice yoga. And of course, only if you practice with us in our retreats or in our studies, you will be able to recognize this once explained how and why. All right. Between 1983 and 1989, in Romania, yoga and martial arts and every other similar practices were banned by the communist regime. So Mario could not practice. He could not have courses during those times, but he continued to practice, of course, on his own. And it was a time of deep discoveries, important contributions, experiments as well. He had contacts with important scientists in Romania, experimented a lot. We have the first recordings of how Shankarakshalayana works inside the body using some substances and making some radiography of the body. So it was a deep, intense training for Mario, a life situation that was full of teachings. And after the Romanian Revolution, after the communist regime collapsed, a new beginning started in 2 or 3 different places in Bucharest. As you can see, I resumed courses. In the picture below, there is the first generation of yoga instructors that started being trained by Mario. There was a historical summer retreat in Câmpul Lung in 1994 with two French yoga associations, the one presided by Patrick Tomatis here in the middle of the picture, and the one presided by our colleague in Yoga de l'Énergie, Jean-Pierre Lafez. It was a unique summer retreat because we also had there a priest that was invited, and the subject was on Esihaz, a form of prayer, common and deep form of prayer in the Orthodox Church in Romania. Then in 1996, we joined the European Union of Yoga. And in 1999, basically, there was the first generation of yoga instructors that was formally graduated and also recognized by the European Union of Yoga. From 1990 to 2015, every summer, Mario organized and delivered these summer yoga retreats in Moieciu. It's our Zinal, if you want. 25 yoga summer retreats that were 10 days long, and every year there was a different theme approached, explored. You can see the last two themes that were explored together. So that was during the summertime. During the academic year, so from October to June, there were conferences going on. So apart from the course, which took place 2 or 3 or 4 times a week, depending on the groups. So in parallel with the regular courses, he would deliver also the bi-monthly conferences at Dallas with lots of guests, honorary guests. Again, here you see Patrick Tomasis from France and Jean-Pierre Lafez. When I say honorary guests or important scientists or men of culture and so on, here in the other picture you see the first and the only astronaut so far that was born in Romania, Victor Prunariu. These conferences were tremendously popular. There were, in the first years of the conferences, there were not enough places to accommodate how many people wanted to take part in them. Here you see him Mario with one of the greatest Romanian inventors, contemporary inventors. And here with Annick de Suzanel, a famous spiritual anthropologist from France. There were also the congresses and workshops and courses held in Zinal along the years, as is the rule. Every 2 or 3 years, every federation can organize this, and Mario was there from 1996 onward to organize this. There was another important World Yoga Congress of Traditional Yoga in Assisi, organized by Antonietta Rozzi and the Italian Federation of Yoga, in which Mario was invited. And there was a famous series of lectures there that he delivered, Asana as a Life Lesson. You see how many people choose to attend it and to learn from him on this topic that is totally related to what I presented in the beginning. How yoga was born, how yoga reflects life, and how by living life with awareness, we basically have this chance to reconnect with our true nature. We practice we practice yoga for life, not the other way around. In 2014, when for the first time in the world, we celebrated everywhere there was an interest, International Yoga Day in Bucharest. By then, the Embassy of India, the ambassador of India, who was a lady then, invited Mario as the most senior yoga teacher in Romania to deliver the opening speech. And in 2015, he organized the last summer retreat at Moeciu. It was his 25th summer retreat since 1990. On his 5th day of the retreat, he was hospitalized. We took him to hospital and continued our retreat. And we finished the retreat on the 10th day. And half an hour after we finished that retreat, Mario entered nirvana, entered the other state beyond the life as we know it. Okay, what is left from his teachings? There are so many jewels, there are so many instruments, there are so many tools. And in front of us, we have what we call the Akshara Kshara Yantra, one of the most important tools, and in the same time specific tools to Vak Yoga. It's a yantra, so if you are familiar with how we can meditate on a yantra, that's fine. If not, I just invite you to sit up, to straighten your line, straighten your spine, your back, and to have a look at the screen. Now, make sure your back is straight and you sit in a symmetrical position. And in a relaxed manner, leaving the shoulders to go down towards the floor, totally relaxed. Make sure your legs are in symmetry, your arms and hands as well. I invite you to be aware of the whole body as it sits. And now, while looking at the yantra in front of your eyes, what we call the Akshara Kshara Yantra, I invite you to look just at the vertical line. Of course, your eyes see the whole picture, but right now, I invite you to focus only on the vertical line. And while doing so, notice what's the effect on your breathing. While watching the vertical line, how am I breathing? if my mind runs away, walks away, okay, with kindness, I bring it back on this vertical line that I see, and on the awareness of my breathing. How am I breathing while watching this vertical line? And right now I invite you to look at just the horizontal line, the one that goes from your right to your left or left to your right. The first horizontal line. How am I breathing right now? While looking at this horizontal line. Am I still relaxed? Are my shoulders still relaxed? My hands, my arms, my legs, thighs? How am I breathing while looking at the horizontal line? And now I invite you to look at the oblique line. If this was in space, this would be the axis that goes from the front to the back, from the back to in the front. So while looking at it, how am I breathing? And right now, I invite you to have a look at all the three axes together. The vertical one, top down, down top. The right to left, left to right. And the one that goes from the front to the back and the other way around. All the three of them. all together. How am I breathing right now? And while watching the three axes, what is my attitude to myself? Am I open or closed? What is my attitude to the rest? To everything that is not myself. The whole universe, the whole world. Am I open to it? Am I close to it? Maybe I can notice that Akshara Yantra does something to my attitude, influences my attitude in a certain way. Just noticing. Okay. Can feel my 2 feet on the ground, 2 palms, 2 hands. I can close my fists, open my fingers, close my fists, open my fingers. I can start moving a bit to the right, to the left, in the front, in the back. Can release my meditation position. Yawn, sigh. The symbolism of this Akshara Yantra is very complex. Right now, we cannot go into too many details, but we can say that the vertical axis is in connection with this fundamental tendency of the human being to get back to the real nature, to rediscover, reconnect, and maintain the connection with the correct information about its true nature. We can also say, so we are talking about the connection with the information. The axis of information is this vertical axis. The axis that goes from the front to the back. In the front, there is the axis of time. To the back, there is the axis of energy. So information, time, energy. And then we have to the right and to the left, the axis of space and substance, space and everything that fills up that space, which is the substance, the matter. We will not insist on this today. The symbolism is very rich and very complex. We could go on for days and months and years to study it. What is important is the experience we have just had. And if you want to continue with how we can meditate and how we can support ourselves on this Akshara Yantra, we can keep contact and keep on going the dialogue between us. What we can say is that based on the Akshara Yantra, you can organize all the asanas in the yoga system, and you can see that there will be asanas that invites the person, the human being, to reconnect with the vertical axis of information, with the correct information that is in his being. You can see that there are asanas like Pavana Muktasana and Paschimottanasana and Merudandasana, just 3 examples I'm giving, that basically bring the information axis towards, in the front, towards time. Sorry?
You just mute Adina. She opened by mistake, probably.
Can you close that mic, please?
No, you have the control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. I thought it's with you. Sorry. Yeah, so the flexions, the whole category, the class of flexions in yoga can be looked at and understood by this partnership between the information axis and the time axis. And then there are the extensions, class of asanas, Sarpasana, and the Sphinx, which invites the information axis to go and visit the energy axis, and so on and so forth. It's not now the right time, but it's something rich. Again, it's a contribution unique to the understanding of yoga that happened in this Romanian school of yoga. The fact that for 800 years, the Akshara Yantra and all the other tools, specifically in Vak Yoga, were hidden and kept in silence. Somebody or somewhere in Tibet, it seems, and they were brought back to light in 1978 in this part of the world. Maybe just a coincidence, but right now, this is where we are. This is what we can share with you, and the message transmitted by the masters who transmitted this form of yoga to Mario in 1978 was, it's for these present times. It's especially for these present times. Now, if we notice that the biggest problem right now, these days or these years, seems to be fake news, which is what? It's an information which is not correct. It doesn't reflect reality. We may understand why it's so important, why it's so necessary to have this tool, for example, Akshara Yantra, and to find our way back to the correct information. I would like to finish with just a short summary of these key teachings. Yoga is life lived with awareness. Yoga reflects the entire life, and all the pieces, all the components, every authentic school of yoga, every exercise reflects the entire life. What does that mean? Please take it with you and meditate on what is the true meaning of this sentence. And also the fact that yoga is first of all and after all attitude. Why and how is this happening? Why yoga is not recognized by a certain position, a certain exercise, but by the attitude of that person doing that exercise, that whatever is there, asana, pranayama, meditation, and so on. Perfection belongs to God. The path to perfection belongs to the human being. Used to tell us Mario about this. And last but not least, a few of the Vak Yoga sutras. We can all listen to what they say and meditate on the content of them. listen correctly to act correctly, in order to act correctly, according to Dharma. The truth speaks in all of us and in every one of us, for all and for itself. The truth cries out to us, but we no longer hear it. We don't hear it anymore because we don't listen anymore. We don't listen anymore because we don't understand. We don't understand anymore because we forgot the language. We forgot the language of the truth because we listened only to ourselves. The logos, the verb, in Sanskrit, vach, cannot be corrupted. We can be corrupted. The purpose of every action is the action itself. The solution to any problem rests in the problem itself. You only find it by leaving the problem, the situation, with awareness and listening to its voice. Close the ears of the lies. Purify your gesture and your word. All right, dear colleagues, thank you for taking part into today's workshop and conference. I apologize for going 12 minutes beyond the scheduled time. If you have questions here now at the end, I'm happy to answer along with my colleagues. Okay, if there are no questions, then I once again thank you. I hope you have a nice journey in yoga and in life. I wish you a beautiful and wonderful day, and keep in touch. Keep in touch. Happy 50 years. Happy 50 years that have gone by. Happy 50 years to come. Thank you. Bye.